Welcome to the deep dive, where we take your sources and really try to uncover the fascinating insights within them.
Yep.
Today, we're diving into a stack of material all about something that feels ancient, definitely powerful, and maybe a little daunting: firewalking and other empowerment activities.
That's right. We've looked at sources ranging from a really comprehensive manual on how to actually organize these events,
Right.
packed with logistics and crucially safety protocols, all the way to an interview with the person often credited with founding the modern firewalking movement, Tolly Burkan.
So, our mission for this deep dive is to go beyond just the how to and safety stuff. Important, yes, but we want to understand the history, the deeper meaning, the psychology behind it all, and, the reported benefits behind activities like walking on hot coals or breaking boards, or even something as focused as passing a needle through skin.
Yeah, get ready for some surprising facts, perhaps, and maybe even a bit of a shift in how you view what's possible for yourself.
Okay, let's unpack this material. So let's start with the big question: why? Why would anyone choose to walk through fire, or maybe even stranger, on broken glass? Our sources suggest this practice has, well, surprisingly deep roots.
Absolutely. The manual points to references going back centuries, even citing the Bible. Proverbs 6.28 asks, "Can one go upon hot coals and his feet not be burned?"
Wow.
And Isaiah 43.2 talks about walking through the fire and not being burned.
So that framing, seeing firewalking not as getting burned, but as not being burned,
Exactly.
linking it to these sort of ceremonial acts for well-being, gives it a completely different ancient context than just like a test of bravery.
It really does. And while it existed in various cultures for ages, the modern movement really gets a clear starting point in the late 20th century. It traces back to Bruce Tolly Burkan meeting a mystic named Kudabox,
Coup de bucks, right.
who reportedly demonstrated firewalking.
But Tully didn't actually firewalk himself until 1977, and he describes that first experience as, well, profoundly transformative. It showed him the immense potential for personal growth that's kind of locked up in confronting these perceived limits. He reports being so compelled by this that he started teaching it, and apparently was the only person doing so publicly for almost 7 years.
Yeah, 1977 was a really pivotal year. Beyond Tully's personal breakthrough, Scientific American published an article that essentially gave a scientific how-to,
Ah, okay.
which pulled firewalking somewhat out of the purely mystical realm,
Yeah.
made the idea, if not the actual practice, more accessible to a wider audience.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely helped spark the global movement we see now.
And Tully Burkan's perspective on why people do it is fascinating. He views the firewalk itself as this powerful metaphor.
Right.
It's not just about proving something impossible is possible, though it absolutely shatters those preconceived notions about your own capabilities.
Yeah, for him, the physical act is really a stand-in for tackling any major life challenge.
Mm-hmm.
He mentions things like, navigating a divorce or facing a serious illness like cancer.
Right.
The internal process you go through to move past the fear and the doubt before you even approach the coals.
Mm-hmm.
And then the decision to take that step and keep moving, those tools, that decisiveness, that's what translates directly to overcoming other obstacles in your life.
That makes so much sense. It's the internal shift, right? It's like a training ground for facing fear.
Right.
And the fire is the immediate feedback.
Exactly. The manual reinforces this, saying that the value of many empowerment activities like breaking a board or walking on glass isn't really in the activity itself,
Uh-huh.
but in its symbolic power. They're powerful as teaching tools and metaphors for facing challenges and, well, learning about yourself in a controlled environment.
And it's definitely not just fire, is it? The manual introduces a whole range of other empowerment activities used for similar goals.
Well, yeah, there's quite a spectrum. Glass walking, for example, it's often presented as kind of the opposite of firewalking.
Opposite. How so?
Well, while fire often involves speed and momentum, glass demands incredibly slow, focused concentration.
Okay, so what's the key takeaway there? What's the lesson?
Attention. It's a really fast way to get feedback on whether you're truly present and focused in that moment.
Right.
The manual details how the glass is prepared, soaked, broken, tumbled to be relatively safe. But the technique is absolutely crucial. Place your foot gently, distribute weight evenly, and the absolute rule is do not twist your foot on the glass. It teaches deliberate, careful action.
Okay, definitely a lesson in mindful movement. What about breaking things, like boards or bricks? That seems more forceful.
It is, but this activity is all about confronting and breaking through those unconscious limits and limiting beliefs you hold about yourself.
Ah.
The manual stresses it's not really about brute physical strength, but about the right technique, a focused attitude, and crucially, unwavering belief in your ability to do it.
And that belief has to be absolute, like no doubt.
Completely.
Mm.
Anything less than 100% commitment in that moment.
Yeah.
No, it shows up, sometimes
Right.
painfully. The lesson is that hesitation is often the real barrier, not necessarily the physical object itself.
Then there's the arrow break. Pushing an arrow against your throat until it snaps. That sounds intense.
It is designed to be, but the core lesson there is that progress happens when you make a firm decision and take immediate action. The arrow breaking is like instantaneous feedback on your commitment level.
So it either snaps quickly or it resists based on your internal state, your hesitation.
Precisely. Full commitment, it shatters. Hesitation, it resists. The technique involved placing the tip at that soft spot at the base of your throat.
The suprasternal notch, right?
That's the one. And stepping forward, not really pushing, but projecting your will and determination through it.
Wow. Okay. And bending rebar.
Hmm.
Steel reinforcing bars. It
Hmm.
must be about strength.
Interestingly, no, not primarily. The manual presents this more as an advanced exercise, highlighting teamwork and cooperation. Yeah, the idea is that together you are stronger than the sum of your individual parts. It requires intense focus, concentration, and deep trust in your partner, much more than just raw physical power.
How does that work physically? Bending steel with your throats.
It involves two people bending a usually 2.4-meter steel reinforcing bar between them, pressing the ends into the hollows of their throats. It absolutely requires spotters.
I bet.
But the bending comes from their synchronized focus and cooperative energy moving towards each other.
Amazing. Then there's falling into friends, which you mentioned tackles one of our most primal fears.
Yeah, the fear of falling backwards. Apparently, it's one of the only two fears we're supposedly born with. This activity directly challenges that fundamental fear,
Right.
requiring complete surrender and trust in the group catching you.
And the manual has very specific guidelines for this, doesn't it? Very strict.
Extremely strict protocols are emphasized, specific platform heights, minimum team sizes, very precise verbal commands, and a really specific physical setup for both the faller and the catchers.
Solid first.
Absolutely. They even suggest practicing falling just a few inches first, just to get comfortable with that feeling of letting go and trusting the support system behind you.
Okay, and finally, Bliss Pierce. Passing a needle through the web of your hand. That just sounds like it would be all about pain.
And yet, according to the source, the core lesson is actually about overcoming the fear of pain.
Oh.
The principle taught is that pain can be understood as like physical intensity plus the judgment you apply to it.
Right.
The idea is that you can change the judgment part.
By changing your state of mind, getting into a different state.
Exactly. By entering a resourceful state, often described as bliss or something similar, you can shift your perception and reduce the judgment component of pain.
Interesting.
The manual mentions using visualizations, like imagining pushing the needle through empty space, because atoms are mostly empty space, right?
Uh-huh.
Or through water, since the body is mostly water, rather than focusing on solid tissue. The technique itself requires disinfection, spreading the web nice and taut, and a focused, often silent process of pushing it through.
Okay, wow. That gives us a sense of the range of activities and the mental lessons they're designed to embody. But none of this happens magically, right? The essential the logistics, the preparation seems incredibly detailed and very safety-focused based on the manual.
Oh, it is absolutely paramount. Risk management is underscored again and again. This means thorough site visits beforehand, detailed risk assessments covering everything.
Everything.
Yeah, the environment, access for vehicles, potential hazards, you name it. And also dynamic risk assessment, constantly evaluating things during the event as conditions change.
And a really important legal point the manual highlights. Just because a participant knows there are risks doesn't protect the organizer from liability if there's actual negligence.
Accountability is absolutely key, and you cannot do this alone. The manual really stresses the rule, never run an event by yourself.
Why not?
Well, partly the impression it gives, but fundamentally it's unsafe. You need a reliable team.
Okay, so what are some key roles on that team?
Fire tenders are crucial. They are solely responsible for managing the fire, from building it to letting it burn down safely, and they need specific training.
Right.
And the manual calls the logistics organizer perhaps the most essential staff member. They coordinate everything, permits, waivers, equipment, making sure everything's on site and ready to go.
Waivers must be a big part of this, making sure participants really understand and acknowledge the risks involved. You probably need enough staff just to get those signed.
Exactly. And for the fire site itself, specific procedures are non-negotiable. Respect the land. Leave it cleaner than you found it. You want to be invited back.
Makes sense.
You need a clear area, free of overhead hazards, no buildings or cars too close, and a nearby water source is essential.
The manual has some really strong warnings about fuel types and what you build the fire on.
Crucial ones. Never use sand as a base under the fire. It holds heat incredibly well, but doesn't disperse it properly, making it dangerous afterwards. And a massive, never use gasoline or petrol. Its low flash point and volatile vapor trail make it incredibly dangerous to light and manage.
Got it. No shortcuts there.
None. Knowing your wood type matters too. Different woods burn differently, affecting the heat and type of coals you get.
They also emphasize setting intentions for the fire itself. What's that about?
Yes, it's framed as putting fuel into the fire, but the fuel is personal meaning. Participants might write their intentions on paper to help light the fire, or maybe on a piece of wood.
Or just hold them mentally.
Or just hold them mentally, exactly. It keeps the why, their reason for being there, central to the physical act.
And protecting the actual ground underneath. You can't just burn anywhere.
Often needed, yeah, especially on sensitive surfaces like grass or even concrete you don't want to scorch. The manual details using protective layers like cement boards or thick turf squares to ensure no burn marks are left behind. It's all about leaving the site as you found it.
So the logistics are really about meticulous planning and strict safety protocols, ensuring the physical container is totally secure so the psychological work, the internal stuff, can actually happen safely.
Precisely.
Okay, let's really delve into that psychological aspect now, the state of mind. Tolly Burkan's belief that state of mind is the most crucial factor for firewalking. That's central to his whole teaching, isn't it?
It absolutely is. He has a theory he calls mind in matter. He proposes that the human body, being connected to a conscious mind, has this innate cooling mechanism involving respiration, perspiration, circulation, all linked back to the brain.
Like that old experiment where you can boil water in a paper cup over a flame because the water keeps the paper below its ignition temperature. Is that the idea?
Yeah, he actually uses that analogy. He suggests that blood circulating at, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit cools the tissue, preventing it from reaching its kindling point.
Okay.
He believes that getting burned happens when the state of mind isn't right, potentially causing capillaries to constrict, which hinders that cooling blood flow to the skin surface.
So he contrasts this with purely physical explanations like the Leidenfrost effect, that little vapor barrier from moisture,
Right.
or the idea that coals are just poor conductors of heat. He argues they don't fully account for the role of mindset.
Yeah, he points out that coals do conduct heat. Stick a metal tool near them, even one dipped in water, and it'll hiss.
True.
The difference in his view is the conductivity of what touches it. Dense metal conducts heat into itself rapidly, causing the hiss. Human flesh, being mostly water and less dense, doesn't conduct heat inward in the same way,
Yeah.
provided the body's own cooling system is functioning optimally. And he links that functioning directly back to your state of mind.
Fascinating theory. Beyond the physical mechanism, though, ceremony and ritual also play a significant role, both historically and in modern events.
Absolutely. Historically, firewalking was often deeply embedded in ritual and reverence in various cultures. And even today, whether it's a big charity event or a smaller personal growth workshop, incorporating elements of ceremony can really deepen the experience and give it more meaning for participants. It elevates it beyond just an activity.
The manual touches on indigenous practices too, doesn't it? Mentioning the Kung people and their concepts of Noom and Kia.
Yes, the Kung of Southern Africa are known firewalkers. Noom is their concept of life force energy or medicine,
Okay.
seen as a healing energy present in everything. And Kia is an altered state of heightened awareness or trance.
And how do these relate to firewalking for them?
Well, Noom is seen as shared and unlimited. Activities like group singing, chanting, rhythmic dancing, these help raise individual and collective Noom, creating this powerful energetic state.
Right.
This elevated Noom, combined with entering the Kia state, is considered essential for their healing ceremonies and also for firewalking. The fire itself is also seen as having Noom, contributing to the whole process.
Interesting connection between energy, state, and the physical act. Shifting back to the psychological framework used in these modern events, the acronym F.E.A.R. comes up quite a bit. False evidence appearing real.
Yeah, it's a common one in these circles. It's used to illustrate that in the controlled environment of an empowerment activity, the perceived risk is often far greater than the actual managed risk.
Okay.
This gives participants a chance to experience fear safely, in a measured way, and crucially, to observe their internal reactions to it.
Like the stories they tell themselves, the imagined negative outcomes, how that makes them feel, and then how those feelings drive their decisions maybe towards inaction.
Exactly. The process helps them recognize those internal patterns and learn to harness the energy that usually goes into fear, redirecting it instead into decisive action and growth.
Yeah.
It's a very direct lesson in how our minds construct reality and shape what we believe is possible for ourselves.
Communication also plays a critical role in setting the stage for this mental shift. There's that principle, the meaning of the communication is the response you get.
Right, this ties into basic principles from neuro-linguistic programming or NLP. It looks at how our language affects our internal states and the states of others. And the crucial point here for facilitators is that the unconscious mind doesn't easily process negatives.
So telling someone, don't run or you'll get burned, actually makes them picture running and getting burned.
Precisely. The brain latches onto the run and burned. The manual stresses using positive instructions. Walk at a steady pace. Keep your intention clear. You'll have an awesome experience. The language helps participants mentally rehearse the desired positive outcome, preparing their mindset.
And the person guiding the process, the facilitator, seems absolutely key to unlocking these lessons. It's not just about doing the activity.
Absolutely not. Without effective facilitation, these are just, well, physical stunts may be interesting, but potentially meaningless. The facilitator's role isn't to dump content or tell people what they should learn,
Right.
but to help participants discover their own insights and realizations from the experience. It's about drawing it out, not putting it in.
Using open-ended questions like, so what did you notice during that? Rather than explaining the meaning to them.
Exactly. Let them connect the dots. The goal is self-discovery. The manual suggests that the best facilitators are often those who have first really mastered the art of self-facilitation, understanding their own reactions, their own thought patterns, that allows them to better guide others.
And all this circles back, really, to the participant's own intention, doesn't it?
Yes, setting and holding a clear intention for why they are doing the activity, whether it's about reaching potential, overcoming a specific challenge, spiritual development, maybe just proving something to themselves, it's vital.
How do they hold it?
Writing it down beforehand, keeping it consciously in mind during the preparation and the act itself. It focuses their effort, their energy, their attention throughout the process. It grounds the physical act in deep personal meaning.
Okay, so with the mindset prepared, the logistics firmly in place, let's talk about the actual process of delivering the firewalk and, critically, what happens after, especially regarding safety. That seems paramount.
It really is. Once the fire is burned down to a good bed of coals, they're carefully raked or shoveled and spread into a pathway, typically around 12 to 15 feet long, maybe a few feet wide. The manual emphasizes ensuring only coals are in the path preventing. No stray logs, no debris, nothing else. Sometimes partially burned logs are placed along the sides for visual effect, but not in the walking path.
And participant focus during the walk itself. What's key there?
100% attention is required. Distractions like phones are strongly discouraged. The focus needs to be entirely on the experience, maintaining that state of mind, holding that intention we just talked about. The manual briefly mentions techniques like banking coals, tapping them tightly together to slow the burn rate if needed, or refreshing the path by adding a few new coals from the main fire, letting them gray over and tapping them down firmly. But the key is a well-managed burn from the start.
And closing the firewalk, how does that happen?
There's usually a clear announcement that is the last call for walking. The manual notes, this can actually be an important moment, sometimes described, maybe dramatically, as an act of mercy for anyone caught in indecision.
Right, gives them a clear endpoint.
Exactly. It respects their process, but provides closure.
Makes sense. Any other safety considerations mentioned around the walk itself?
Yeah, reinforcing that participation is always a choice. And choosing not to walk or withdrawing at any point should be celebrated and respected just as much as walking.
Good point.
Environmental factors matter. Too strong winds, for example, can significantly increase cold temperature and the risk. Gusts over 30-mile-per-hour are noted as a significant risk factor. And ensuring no foreign objects like metal tool fragments, coins, dropped phones accidentally end up in the coal path is also vital.
Right. And finally, the cleanup process after everything is done seems like a big deal.
It's non-negotiable and stressed is absolutely imperative. The site must be left exactly as found, or ideally even better. This is crucial for your reputation and for being allowed to use the site again in the future.
How do you dispose of all those coals safely?
They must be completely extinguished, totally cold, and damp before disposal. No question. Methods include burying them deeply on private property where permitted, or, more commonly, placing them in sturdy metal drums for responsible off-site disposal later. The manual gives a very strong warning about the serious danger of reignition. Never, ever put even slightly warm coals in dumpsters or bins. They can smolder for hours and cause major fires.
Okay, good warning.
The manual wraps up its practical sections with some trainer tips, which are essentially distilled field wisdom. Things like confirming venue suitability way in advance, completing those risk assessments diligently, always having a competent team, preparing like a pro but being flexible like a facilitator,
Uh-huh.
recognizing that ceremony matters, and maybe most importantly, always staying a student of the process yourself.
So to kind of circle back and connect a lot of these ideas, let's revisit Tolly Burkan's personal story. He talks about his own life challenges as being his credentials to teach this stuff.
Yeah, his life has been marked by really significant physical adversity. He suffered a severe neck injury, including paralysis, after being hit by a car as a young man,
Wow.
requiring multiple surgeries, using cadaver bones for fusion, dealing with chronic pain. And then, years later, he actually re-broke his neck in another accident when his van flipped.
Unbelievable. And he also faced cancer twice, went through a divorce.
Yes, he experienced immense physical and emotional challenges. He talks about struggling with morphine addiction because of the intense pain and even very candidly about attempting suicide twice in his early 20s due to deep self-doubt and despair. He really sees these profound experiences of suffering and, crucially, of overcoming as giving him the depth of understanding and, I guess, the authority to teach others about confronting their own limitations and fears.
He even wrote a book called Let It Be Easy, right? Which offers simple tools for navigating life's difficulties, born directly from his own struggles. And interestingly, you mentioned it doesn't even talk about firewalking.
That's right. For Tolly, the firewalk itself is seen more as a portal, a powerful peak experience that, for many people, can lead to a fundamental shift in perspective. It can open up a whole new way of living, a different lifestyle.
He gives examples.
Yeah, he mentions people like a Wall Street executive whose entire life trajectory changed after the experience.
Yeah.
He believes millions have now passed through this portal in various forms of these empowerment activities, and that it's contributing to humanity becoming, more conscious, more aware of its potential.
Wow, what a deep dive that was. From ancient proverbs and traditional energy concepts like Noom, all the way to modern psychology, NLP, meticulous safety protocols. There is clearly so much more layered within these empowerment activities than just a physical feat.
Definitely. We've explored how something like firewalking isn't just about, walking on hot coals. It's presented as a state of mind, a powerful metaphor for facing life's challenges, whatever they may be,
Right.
and a practice rooted in intentionality and, for some, even deeper ritual and energy work, depending on the context.
And we heard how Tolly Burkan's own incredible journey through immense pain and adversity really became the foundation for his mission to share these tools for personal growth, seeing the Firewalk as this profound portal to unlocking human potential.
It really makes you pause and think, doesn't it? If walking unharmed on hot coals, something that seems utterly impossible on the surface, can be approached not just through physics explanations, but by harnessing inner focus, managing perception, really confronting fear head-on.
Yeah.
What other impossible things in your own life, big or small, might actually become possible if you approach them with a different mindset, with clear intention, and with that kind of committed action?
That's the question, isn't it? What challenge are you ready to view differently after hearing all this?